Welcome back to Practice Underwater. I'm here with our real dentist, real numbers, fake name, Gregorio. And I was just talking to this dentist. Real name is not Gregorio. And I asked, do you have a fake name ready? He said no. And he also said that I tried to look at a recent episode of Practice Underwater to see kind of what it's like. And I didn't find anything. And it's like, yeah, no, I haven't done this in years. And so the reason I picked the name Gregorio is, sometimes when you go order a Starbucks or something and you write your name or you tell them your name, and if you ever want to give something funny, I use Gregorio and I spell it like Oreo at the end, like the cookie. And so we have Gregorio with us, and not a real name, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for the great name there. I appreciate it, George.
So, I think the first thing you said, which is important for our audience to understand, is you are not underwater. So, when you think of underwater, I remember I did an interview years ago with an individual who was literally pretty close to bankruptcy. And I was like, you should be urgently I remember I was using the term of blank on fire. And, you are in not that type of situation. You are doing very well. Just to kind of put just for our audience to get an understanding, just at a very high level, I have your Practice by Numbers open here. And, I'm taking a look at your last year, and, you guys collected over $2 million. So, I would never call this underwater, but you are undercover. And, so I'm just welcome to the show, and, maybe help our audience understand where you're at in your journey of practice ownership. If you want to maybe talk through a little bit about, before, how you got into ownership, your history, and just really let our audience get to know you, even though we have your name not necessarily exposed.
Yeah, for sure. So I graduated in 2018, did a 1-year GPR after that, came out, went straight into an associateship, and actually that is the practice I'm at now. I ended up buying the owner out that I went into, worked for him for 4 years. We can get into those details if that's something we want to talk about, but yeah, it was the classic come in, you think you're going to buy sooner than what you do, and then it lasts, year by year, and then finally 4 years later we made it happen. And so that happened last January. So January of 24 was when I bought, and so we've been going at it for a little over a year now, and things are going pretty good now. But I'm starting to get to an inflection point of getting big enough to where I need to start making some decisions, and that's when I reached out to Shared Practices to kind of talk about what, trying to figure out my vision and figure out what the best route to that vision is. But yeah, it's a 2-doc office. We have 3 hygienists, 3 assistants, 3 up front, no office manager. I do a lot of the higher level stuff. And yeah, that's about it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So a few things here. The first is just for everyone. So, Gregorio, not his real name, will be moving forward with our coaching department. And so this is sort of, kind of at the onset of that. So, that's why you mentioned reaching out to Shared Practices. And so, but I'm curious to step back a bit. You talked about something that I think is super relevant where, you entered into an associateship, and I'm curious, it just comes up so many times, right? When you enter into that associateship and end up buying that practice, what ends up happening a lot of times in general sense is, a dentist will come in as an associate, and the seller is a bit in the burnout phase when they're onboarding that associate. And so they communicate a timeline that's pretty aggressive, like 18 months, 12 months, you're going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is as that associate enters and they have a sense of ownership because they believe that they're going to be buying the practice, then all of a sudden the seller is relieved. And, what became a year becomes 3. It sounds like for you it was 4. So just kind of talk me through that process of starting at the practice as an associate and transitioning into ownership.
Yeah. So, and first of all, he takes really great care of me. I honestly wouldn't be where I'm at today without him. And that's why I was pretty patient throughout the process, because we're honestly still friends now. And, it's, he had some personal things going on that made it more difficult to sell. So it kind of came to a head where I was at a point where I need to get ownership in something. And it took us kind of having a conversation of being like, well, I'm either going to leave and find my own thing, or, I need to buy this, by this date. And that he was like, okay, you're serious. Let's make it happen. And then so that's kind of where we were. I was wearing golden handcuffs for a while. I was producing well. He was paying me well, and I was, it was kind of one of those things where I was happy and a little bit lazy, if I'm honest. And but finally, got over the hump last year and um, trying to, keep the vision moving forward and keeping it, basically trying to grow and grow. And now, like I said, I'm kind of getting to a point where I need to start making some bigger decisions.
4 years, you said?
4 years, yep, yeah. So I came on in 19, and then yeah, bought last year.
Okay, and then did he retire right when you purchased?
Yes. So, yeah, pretty much. So he actually didn't work in the practice at all the whole time I was there. He actually got injured.
Oh. So for 4 years, you were the only dentist, or was there another dentist
So
with you?
the other associate had already been there too. Yeah.
Can you just go through like the revenue with the time that you purchased the practice? What was the purchase price, if you don't mind
Yeah.
sharing?
He was collecting about 1.5 when I came on. And it was kind of a weird situation because the associate was really like keeping the practice afloat at that time. They were super busy. I mean, it was backlogged so bad. So I came in hitting the ground running. So it was the numbers are a little bit skewed because of that. But so they collected 1.5, about that for on average for a few years, from probably like I'm trying, and I glanced at the numbers, but I don't have a lot of that. I didn't have a lot of that like in front of me, honestly. But yeah, so 1.5 when I came on in 19, and we've steadily increased that until 2 this year. So I think it was 1.5, 1.6, 1.8 last year, 1.9, and then this year a little, right at 2.
And did you like have to pay a premium for growing the practice as an associate, or did you guys kind of agree on the purchase price on the front end?
Yeah, so thank you to shared practices. I actually got that agreement on the front end. So we basically averaged it out, and he gave me a pretty good deal on the practice overall. But it was I basically paid for half of what I grew, which is unfortunate. But also, he gave me a good deal on the practice in general. Just like I said, it was a good handshake kind of deal at the end of the day.
Okay. So now, I think I got a good understanding of the practice, and something you said earlier, we now understand how you got into ownership. So the associate that you currently have, it's you and another dentist, and that dentist has been there with you the whole time. So this is a very tenured person at the practice. The only other thing that's missing before we dive into your specific desires as an owner is really around the town situation. Like, what kind of market are you in? Not, don't say the name of the place that the
Yeah,
practice is located, but just like in general, kind of size of city, competition level, what part of the country, type of thing.
for sure. And I guess people probably want to know numbers too. So the purchase price ended up being 1.3 million, by the way.
Okay.
So and like I said, we were collecting probably when I purchased, we collected 1.9. So like I said, we grew it a little over 150 grand the first year I owned it. But anyway, so we're in the Midwest, about 30 minutes outside of a major city. It's probably the first area that I would say is not a suburb. It's pretty rural, very blue collar. So lots of limited exams, lots of, I try to do a lot of same day dentistry. But and that's the way I like it. I like my blue collar people, and I have some good buddies in the city, and they love it up there, and do a lot of smile design type stuff. And I like a lot of quadrant dentistry type stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And, if I had to like, you know, what does perfect look like, or what are we striving for, not at the practice, but in your personal life? There's like this work life harmony that I think is just really inherent to practice ownership, where, by the way, 1.3 million on 1.9, that's a good deal. Like, don't, that's, you did well.
Yep.
So, moving on to like your life as an owner, I know that I have notes here. So I know that you have young children, and I'm just curious, like beginning with the end in mind. And, I think that for me, I deeply believe that private practice, one of the key benefits should be that the practice is tailored to your personal life. And so, if you had to begin with your personal life in mind, what does a really ideal personal life look like?
And this is another thing that I struggle with, is having a good vision. And I feel like I haven't had a clear vision for a long time, and that's another kind of reason I'm looking to help kind of develop that. But I guess in my ideal life, I'm working clinically. I'm still working 2 days a week, and then outside of that, if I had to do a third day, I don't think that would be like a big deal. But really, just more time at home. The big sticking points for me is I like to get home at a certain time to hang out with our daughter for a couple, at least a few hours. right now on the days that I'm working, I get home probably 6 at the earliest, and you only get an hour or so, and then you're off to bed, and it just goes too quick. So definitely, time at home is going to be the big thing for me. And I think if I get more days off, that allow me to be home a lot more and enjoy life with the fam.
Couldn't relate more. So I'm curious, what about your clinical schedule at the moment? How many days are you working?
So I'm in the office 4 days. Yep,
Monday through Thursday?
Monday to Thursday. Yep, 8 to 5.
And then your associate?
She's 3 days.
And what days?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
So you are in the office alone on Mondays, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Mm.
Checking 3 hygiene.
And then she's Tuesday through Thursday. Now, let's talk about procedure mix. So, when I think of 2 days a week as the goal, I want to try to help you envision and ultimately execute with our coaching department a world in which your practice is operating through systems and processes that are repeatable, through people that are properly trained, and your clinical schedule is very productive on 2 days. So talk about your clinical box as a dentist. Most importantly, what are you comfortable with? And also, what types of clinical procedures energize you and get you up in the morning? And, if you were to go into the office and have a full day of one type of dentistry, like, or multiple types, like what would be like your favorite things to do clinically?
Yeah, I would say if I could do an implant on number 13 all day long, I would do that in a heartbeat. No, I'd say implants, and I never thought I'd love endo, but I really do love endo also, especially like emergency endo, somebody getting somebody out of pain. That's something I really, really enjoy doing is helping people out that way. But yeah, I mean, if I part of me, I could see myself, being like an emergency type of dentist, but I also, like I said, I do a little bit of ortho. I kind of do a little bit of everything. If it's straightforward, um, I feel like I've got enough training to do a lot of like, 30% of the easy cases, and then, send the rest out with the more advanced stuff. But as far as endo goes, there's not a whole lot I'll send out. Um, but really, the problem right now is that I'm trying to block out my schedule, but we're so busy. I'm filling up, and then I don't have any room for anybody. So that's just kind of the problem that we're having.
So walk me through your associate's clinical box. So I'm going to go back into yours real quick, but I just have a question on the associates.
Yeah, they're just bread and butter. She's great at doing the general dentistry, and it leads in well because a lot of the stuff that she doesn't like to do, she refers on over to me, and I'll take it over from there. But yeah, just pretty much bread and butter.
And bread and butter, does that include extractions?
No, sorry. Yeah, just filling the crowns.
Fillings, crowns,
Yeah, some endo.
some endo. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So she'll do anterior endo for sure.
Okay. And then why does she only work 3 days?
So she went down to 3 when she had her second daughter. She had her second daughter. She was actually pregnant when I came on 4 years ago, and then she had her second daughter, and she went down to 3 after that, and just stayed 3 from then on. And I think it's going to stay that way for probably a long time until her kids are probably out. Um, but yeah, she's very happy where she's at. I think with the 3 days and kind of the deal that we have and everything. So yeah,
Okay.
I consider her a friend too. She's awesome.
Yeah. So now I'm going to dive into each of these, the implants, endo, and ortho. So implants, let's just say a patient comes in and they have number 13 fractured off at the gum line.
Hmm.
Are you doing an extraction graft implant later? Are you comfortable with immediates in emergency situations? Just kind of talk me through. I want maybe a little bit more in depth and granular through your implant comfort zone, and what types of implant cases are you loving, and what types of stuff are you like, that's a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, getting more comfortable with immediates. Definitely doing a lot more of those. But I'd say historically, it's almost always take tooth out, make an interim, come back, place the implant 4 months later, and go that whole route. But lately, I've actually been doing more immediates and trying to get more comfortable with that as well. Full arch stuff, I don't really do any. I don't do any kind of full arch surgery as far as implants are involved. But we do restore some. I don't do a whole lot, but if it's a straightforward locator case, that's what I'm usually going to do. If it's something a little bit more complicated, I'm usually sending that out just because I'm not as efficient with that type of thing.
So locator, like overdentures, you'll do.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And then what about implant bridges?
Implant bridges, yeah, yeah. We do some of those. Most of the time with that type of thing, if it's like an implant bridge, like a 3 unit bridge or something like that, I usually make it a deal for the patient to just do 3 implants or something just to get make things more straightforward for me.
Do you do anything guided or all freehand?
Both, yeah. So I actually just bought a new guided kit, but so I'll be doing a lot more guided, but I'd say probably 90% freehand. And then now that I'm getting more comfortable with some tougher cases, I think I'll probably do a lot more guided just for some of those tighter cases and things.
Okay, so I have a really good idea of your implant box. Now endo, totally get it. You love endo; it's your favorite. So
Yeah.
let me just ask you. So like, patient comes in, molar endo number 30. Are you doing root canal crown, or are you doing root canal crown on a different day?
So right now it's usually crown a different day, but there are cases where if I have the time, I'll do the crown. We're not milling in office yet. That's something I'm actually looking more into too. But yeah, so most of the time it's endo and then crown.
And our audience is like, why is he getting into this in such granularity? Let me just explain for our audience, and then I'm going to ask about ortho. So, Gregorio, I have to remember our funny name. So, Gregorio, he wants to go 2 days a week. And so I'm doing the math on what days per week, what procedure mix, because ultimately what I want is what Gregorio is producing in 4 days. I want to get as close to that in 2 days. And so if you can see here, I'm just going to do a little recap, right? The implant and endo mix is actually quite complementary. So if a patient comes in, like, right, let's just say Monday is the emergency day typically, and Monday is a day that he's there by himself currently, right? So Monday would be a great day to keep. And, emergencies and, implants, those two things, emergency endo and emergency extractions and immediate implant placements, like those two actually go together nicely and can lead to quite a productive schedule. And so, I would think that that's kind of where I'm going with this is I'm trying to really, it seems like we're heading towards the pseudo specialist route, where we're going to have Gregorio, work towards, you're probably going to need it to be adding another associate, and Gregorio is going to need to be focusing his clinical box on the highest and best use of his time in the office. And so, I've dug into implants, I've dug into endo, and now I want to ask about ortho. So talk about your ortho, experience, skill set, what you like to do.
So ortho definitely a lot more limited. So we do just clear aligners, and if it's got to be class one, and it's got to be less than like 4 millimeters of crowding or spacing, and then I'll do it. So out of all of our cases that are adult ortho, I probably do maybe 20% of them. But ortho doesn't really get me going as much. It's more of a service for my patients that somebody doesn't want to go to somewhere else or whatever, and obviously I can do it cheaper for them usually too. But yeah, if it's straightforward, I'll do it.
So question for you. How hard would it be to add this simple ortho to your associate's box? You don't seem super excited about it. You don't take on a ton of cases. It seems like, I've done some clear aligners myself. And, based on what you're describing, I would say the degree of difficulty on these aren't incredibly high. So has your associate shown any interest in picking this up?
Not really, no. Like I said, I think she just likes to keep life simple. And I honestly kind of envious of her with that because she just does what she likes to do, and that's just crown and bridge and restorative. But but yeah, I'm honestly never really talked to her much about it. Um, if I don't think I don't want to be that owner that's like, oh, trying to push things to get done, pushing associates to do certain things. But I think it's also a conversation that could definitely be had. See if that's something that she would want to do.
All right. So now transitioning slightly. So I got an idea of your clinical box. It seems like the ortho thing is like, which one of these is not like the other, and I think that the ortho really falls into that camp for me, where
Yeah.
it's like I see the implants and endo as more synergistic procedure mix. And, if you think about it, your ortho isn't necessarily like a driver. It's more like something that you do, but and I wouldn't say stop it by any means. I just think that if we're going to be building an ideal schedule for you
Yeah,
and an ideal path to productivity, I think that it's the nice to have that happens when it happens, but I don't necessarily think it's something that you want to build on top of. I think it's something that when it comes, it's great. So, does that sound accurate, or do you have a different assessment?
no, yeah, that sounds very accurate.
Okay. So, we're kind of moving along here. So now and maybe I should stop just for a minute and just kind of walk through what I see on the PBN dashboard that I've been clicking through as we've been talking.
Yeah,
So, Gregorio has a practice that is interesting in that there's a very high patient base size. So we're talking 3,000 patients. And so, we have 3,000 patients that are considered active patients. And the patients that come in through your hygiene department, I don't know, you have a very high reappointment rate. Are you a listener of the show, adopting our philosophies kind of ahead of coaching? Just kind of walk me through your retention. It's quite impressive, the amount of people that reschedule from hygiene for you.
I wish I could take all the credit for that and say it was me, but it was not. It was very well run when I came in, and they had a good reappointment rate. We reappoint in the op, and we have some great hygienists that do a good job with that. But yeah, it's one of those things that was kind of already done, and we tweaked a couple things. And when we got PVN, I showed a couple of them, the stats on things, and they love that. So that's helped to kind of even increase it more. But yeah, it's just been a well-oiled machine since I got it, to be honest.
So, it's interesting. Last month, you guys killed it, like 97%. When I look at last year, you guys are more like strong for an average office that produces or collects analytics. But
Yeah,
I would say that, consistency of that number will likely improve as you continue to work with our coaching department and as our coaching department, works with the teams.
for
But I
sure.
think overall, this is something that you guys do, definitely better than the national average by, a good margin. But the thing that's particularly interesting to me is the 3,100 patients that you have active. When you consider that, that puts you in the world of being able to, so like when I'm looking at the number of patients that you need, and we say, okay, Gregorio has come to us with a desire to work 2 days. Gregorio also comes with a great clinical box. I mean, the implants, the fact that you do 90% of your implant placements up to overdentures, fully like not guided and are moving towards immediates, like that for me is something to lean into from a productivity perspective, especially how much you love emergency. And so, I think that that's super interesting to me. And it's kind of unconventional because normally a pseudo specialist, they're going to have a very methodically laid out schedule where it's going to be productive procedure after productive procedure, and there's a lot of planning ahead of each of their days. And for you, it's almost like the opposite, where, I think that your most productive days as a pseudo specialist may come in with a loose plan, but you're going to rely heavily on that same day dentistry and the emergency nature of, you're semi rural. So you're going to have an access to care issue where people aren't as regular. And, that's going to be something that's going to be driving your performance. But when I look at the 3,100 patients, the thing that I really see is I just see a ton of opportunity for you to go ahead and add another dentist. And so we're going to keep this high level at the moment, but
Yeah,
I just see I see like you have an associate who's not going to work more than 3 days a week. You're working 4 days a week. You're coming home at 6 o'clock. I know my bedtime starts at 6:45 with my little girls. And so like, I can relate to kind of what you have going on. And so, I think that a full-time associate is needs to be on your radar, at least in my opinion. So I'm curious, have you put much thought to bringing on another dentist?
oh, big time. I mean, that's where I'm at an inflection point now where I don't know how, yeah, like I said, you want to keep it this high level, but um, I need to expand. I have space to expand, and I need to decide if I want to do that, or we're in network with, like, the biggest insurance company on their higher level that everybody knows, and I'm deciding if I'm gonna drop that and go fee for service and then expand, or expand and then you know drop after that. So, kind of get more into those numbers. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go, George, but
Yeah.
so right now we're about 45% of our patients are in that network. And then I think that it was 49% of our collections are from that network. So, so pretty heavy on one insurance. And I just don't want to have all my eggs in one basket is what, kind of where I'm going and kind of a big reason why I wanted to, get some help and figure things out.
When I look at your new patient flow, it I'm not wowed by it. I'll put it that way. Right? So like you have on average for last year you saw 450 new patients, which means your high 30s, mid 30s is kind of your regular new patient flow. And I'm curious, are you guys like super booked out in hygiene, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, 8 months to get a cleaning appointment. You would be very disappointed in my schedule, George.
I'm a little
There's
disappointed in that, to be honest, Gregorio. Yeah, we're gonna do something about that once you start working with our team.
yeah, there's no open and fill there. It's just fill.
Yeah, it's just full. It's not even
Yeah,
fill. It's full. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's just F. So I'm curious. What are we going to be? So like a new patient calls. You saw 32 new patients last month.
hmm
Like, did they wait 8 months?
I block out new patients, but we only block out about 30 spots for it right now, just because I have to block out to get some new patients, obviously, but I also don't want to make it to where my existing patients are waiting forever for their appointments. So like I said, I'm at a big time capacity issue. I need to extend hours, which I don't really want to deal with, to be honest with you. And then so it's for me, it's probably either expand or drop insurance. And that's
Yeah,
kind of and I get analysis paralysis so bad, and that's just kind of where I'm at, and I need to make a decision soon and just make it happen. So
yeah. I think you're gonna really enjoy the way that we make decisions and guide. You'll have much more comfort in what we're doing.
yeah,
Now, you've brought up this dropping insurance things multiple times, and I just want to I want to lay down a quick decision here. We're not going to drop insurances. So
okay,
so just for everyone to know, right? Hidden name, no idea where this practice is located. Delta Premier is the insurance we're talking about. That's a great insurance, and you know, I typically like the practice of let's get to full capacity. Let's get as many patients as we can fit. Let's get every hygiene schedule full. Let's make sure we're seeing high levels of new patients. Like, let's get everything churning and burning the way that we want it to long term. Then let's trickle down the insurance involvement that we're essentially raising barriers by doing that. And from my standpoint, like the practice right now has, so like, let's just look at the math. So the practice has 3,100 active patients. We saw 450 new patients last year. So, based on your retention rate, you may be somewhere between you. So your practice last year added roughly 260 patients to the total count. So we're growing,
yeah,
but I think that you're almost limiting that growth through
for
the
sure.
lack of availability. And
Oh, no
so,
doubt.
I think that there's phases to this. And I think the first phase would be ramping up the patient engine to get the practice to be fully staffed with, a full-time dentist associate, our 3-day per week associate plus you working 2 days. You could call that 4 days for the associate, 2 days for you is 6 plus 3, 9 days, and so, we still have like a lot more doctor days to add to this practice. And then we also are going to want to add hygiene days to this practice. And so I want to go through the process of adding those days, getting the full capacity built out, and have the schedule be full the whole time. And then there's a natural reassessment point that says, okay, we're at our ideal volume. I don't want to grow the practice anymore. And, now I'm interested in potentially, cutting insurance, improving our profitability that way. But I think that there's an order of operations that I want to be mindful of. So, we're going to
For
talk
sure.
more on that next time on the next episode. But I want to first talk about the facility. So
Yeah.
we have a 7 operatory facility with room to expand next door. So kind of help me understand what's the situation going on with the building.
Yeah. So the dentist I bought from still owns the building. So right now, yeah, we have 7 ops. There's probably room and I haven't done any floor plans or anything like that with this, but definitely room for at least 4 more, maybe 6, if we like really squeeze in tight, probably. Um, but yeah, that's the room next door. It's kind of a strip, like a mini strip mall kind of situation. Pretty good visibility. We're right off the main street. We're the first suite that's right off the street there with a big sign. So pretty good visibility. Um, but yeah, so that's the situation as far as what we'd be expanding into. It's vacant right now. There's nobody in there. He owns it. The business that was there actually moved into the suite next door for more room too.
Okay. So now my last question for you before we wrap up this first part is really around your appetite, right? So like, you know, maybe just for our audience, give us an idea of your current income situation. So, you can, in whatever terms you're comfortable, right? No one knows your name. You're Gregorio. And so, just help our audience understand, where are you at from an income perspective right now? And the next question will kind of lead into like timing and all of that.
So net income was a bit over 500,000. I put a decent amount of that back like into the practice, just keeping it as far as like, trying to just update things, did a lot of painting, a lot of updates just to the practice in general. But yeah, so we're right around there. As far as wanting more, I don't see myself like needing more kind of per se. Like we definitely live on a lot less than we already um, make now, but obviously the higher that number is, the sooner I can get to a point where I don't, have the option to work kind of thing.
We're talking about multiple things. We're talking about like, we're going to want to expand this facility. Like I don't know, I just have like like, this is how I'm looking at this. You have the potential to have a very large business here.
For sure.
Like you're doing 2 million, like you could easily be doing 3.5 with a proper facility, more doctor or another doctor, and more hygienists. And so, like, I'm really interested in getting you to that 3.5 million where you're making more money, working less, doing your favorite type of dentistry. Like, that's kind of the end in mind that I'm starting to like get you towards.
Yeah.
And the last question that I really have before I put it all together for the end of the first part is, what is your like, you can go fast, and if you go fast, we get there sooner. But as we go fast, we maybe have less income along the way. I don't think you're going to be in a situation ever throughout this process where you are not covering your living expenses through your income. But
Yeah,
like, you could dip it a little bit. And
for sure.
so, how much is that a fear that you would rather go slower, or how much is it a pain point, the personal life sacrifices that you're currently making, where you're like, look, I know where we're going, I see the vision, and I'd like to get there sooner, and I'm okay with my income taking a temporary decrease to get me there faster. Like, where do you fall on that?
I don't remember which episode that you had with Richard, but I think I fall more in line with how Richard feels about that. And I think I don't like to have that dip just because I like being comfortable and I like, not having the stress of, oh shoot, maybe this will be close kind of thing. So that it's funny. I was, in me trying to, develop my vision and things, I've obviously been listening to a lot of the episodes, which by the way, bringing Scott on has been huge. You guys are doing great with that. So that's been awesome. Um, but yeah, I think I'm more along the line of do it slow, keep things stable, and because like I said, I'm not miserable the way I am. I think it's just one of those things where I want to be home more. I feel like I'm doing great right now, but I think keeping that comfort level would be bigger for me, to be honest with you.
Okay. So I really like where this is going. And so I also really appreciate your answer, right? Because if you ask me, I would be like, speed kills.
I know. Yeah.
And,
No.
I think that it's like to each their own. And we have to meet you where you're at and where you're comfortable and do it on your pace. So, I'm going to start to wrap up the first part. And in the next part, we're going to talk about getting there.
Okay.
So, I've met Gregorio. Gregorio has a 7 operatory practice. He's got 3,000 patients. He works Monday through Thursday, has an associate that works 3 days, Tuesday through Thursday, and is interested in, so what's the chief complaint, right? When your patients come in, like, what's their chief complaint? Well, Gregorio's chief complaint is that he would like to work 2 days a week. Like, that's what he's going for, but, wants to do it in a measured approach. And so on the next episode, we're going to talk about how to turn this $2 million practice that is the owner is working 4 days a week. How do we turn that into a practice where the owner is working 2 days a week, doing implants and endo primarily with a little bit of ortho, to drive their personal productivity to be high, keep their income high? And how do we do that in a way where we're probably going to want to expand next door, maybe in a more measured approach, and really execute on, the turn? And I think that, what I see here, like, you're booked out 8 months in hygiene, you have so much room and capacity to grow, and it's really going to be about unlocking that growth. I would not be surprised at all if this practice is doing, 3.5 million per year by the time we're done, implementing some of the changes that we're going to talk about on the next episode, which could take 12 to 18 months. But, that's really what I see as, the end in mind that I'd like to work towards. So, Gregorio, I've been talking a lot and I've been asking you questions you've been answering, but like that, what I just kind of laid out there at the end, does that sound right? Or did I miss something? Or did I miss the mark? Does that not sound like what you're going for?
I think it does sound right. I guess the only thing that I would add to that is that I do love seeing my same patients over and over as well. And I don't know, I really feel connected to the community. So being a pseudo specialist, I know it sounds crazy. I would never think I would say this, but like I kind of enjoy going in and doing some hygiene checks and like seeing the people that I love seeing. You know what I'm saying? So I know now I'm throwing like a wrench in it, and I like telling you I don't want to be a pseudo specialist, but that's part of why I love dentistry, man. I mean, I love getting to connect with people, and that's part of the draw for me. So yeah, that's good. I don't know how that fits into, I guess checking hygiene those 2 days, still checking some hygiene while I'm in there those 2 days and doing it that way kind of thing.
Yeah, we're going to build that in. Tune in for the next episode, and we're going to take this vision, the high level conversation that we've had in part 1, and we're going to break it down, get detailed in it, and really work on fleshing out what it looks like on a more specific level, and then talking about the execution steps that we're going to have to take over the next 12 to 18 months to get there. And, luckily you're going to have a ton of support from us, and, we're going to be able to do that. So, by the way, this expansion thing is exciting to me. This is like the perfect thing for that location growth call that we're going to be starting in the mastermind, where it's like, that's like, I mean, I'm already thinking, 6 hygiene operatories lined up. Like, I already am thinking of the floor plan. So it's like, it's just interesting to kind of have so many different elements at play. This is just, there's a lot to work with here. So, Gregorio, I really appreciate you coming on. And, we're gonna wrap up our first episode with you, and we're going to kick into the next part where we're going to flesh this out in more detail. So thanks for coming on.